Early on December 7th, 2000, the western side of the city of Boise, Oklahoma reported a mass of unusual tremors. Some citizens on the far western outskirts of the city reported that they had allegedly seen a strange flash in a cloud formation further west. The following day, representatives from the government made an official statement. A nuclear testing facility, located further west in the Black Mesa region, experienced a critical failure, resulting in the accidental discharge of a nuclear missile and the subsequent destruction of the facility. They also went on to inform that no personnel were seriously harmed, as the facility was being cleared out for the day, and those on the outskirts of the facility were already being treated for any signs of radiation poisoning. However, while this statement holds some truth, the reality of December 7th is wrapped up in a wider story. One that showcases unforeseen consequences of scientific advancement, that details the tragedy of countless innocent workers trapped beneath layers of concrete walls, and one that the government would rather keep silent than help aid. This is the Black Mesa Incident. The Black Mesa Research Facility was constructed out of decommissioned ICBM testing and launching silos dating back to the 1960s. The government-backed research facility was created not only as a scientific organization, but also a civilian institute. Most, if not all, members of the research facility also found themselves lodging on site, with amenities such as libraries, lounges, food courts, and other personal services. Black Mesa spanned the size of a small town and also expanded downwards into the earth for miles. The facility was made to research numerous different outlets of science. They specialized in basic scientific research such as applied mathematics, chemistry, and hydroelectricity, to subjects that lie closer to the realm of science fiction, such as robotics, lasers, and rocketry. And the goal of Black Mesa was spelt out plainly in their motto, working to make a better tomorrow for all mankind. However, behind the steel doors of the facility, Black Mesa was not as it appeared to the public. While there is undeniable evidence that Black Mesa did perform research in the aforementioned fields, there were projects that were kept silent from the general public. These projects included research into weapons and defense systems, systems for teleportation, and research into an alien dimension that lay parallel to our own.
The border world, which we have referred to as Zen, is a separate dimension from our own. We discovered it as a result of our teleportation technology. Zen itself has a breathable atmosphere similar to Earth, but significantly reduced gravity across several small planetoids. Traversal was already an issue given the unorthodox gravity, but Zen was home to a number of hostile organisms that displayed the ability to shoot deadly toxins or produce powerful sonic waves, among other things. Regardless, our research teams were insistent on gathering all the data they could from Zen, so research teams were regularly sent there to gather resources.
After extended research on Zen, an experiment was to be conducted on a sample of a crystal retrieved from the alien world. However, on November 30th, the team performing the experiment will receive notice that the experiment was to be conducted on a new sample, as this newly discovered crystal was, quote, the purest sample we've seen yet.
I think all the scientists thought that it was a peculiar how quickly the samples were swapped. Usually a lot of tests needs to be performed on samples beforehand in case of any irregularities that aren't noticed at first glance. So to have a new sample brought in 5 days before we start testing caused a lot of uproar in the lab. We have procedures for handling these anomalous materials, so to have them be so apparently violated was frustrating, to say the least.
The man responsible for this sudden change in the experiment was the administrator of Black Mesa, a man known as Wallace Breen. It was at his behest that the team swapped the samples for the upcoming experiment. As such, there was no time to perform proper research on Breen's preferred sample, as opposed to the original sample. Eventually, December 5th came around, the day of the experiment. The area of Black Mesa known as Sector C is in full preparation in anticipation of the experiment.
Well, I want to say it was like any other day at Black Mesa, but it did feel like there was something in the air that just didn't sit right with me. By the time I had clocked in that morning, our system had a crash that we needed to get figured out so that we could actually function. Hard to work without any files to work with, right? Some hotshot egghead was running late too. Gave us extra time to fix everything, but it also gave me extra time to sit and think in the men's room, which, ironically, may have been what saved my ass.
The experiment was to be as follows. The crystal sample was to be pushed into a device called an antimass spectrometer. The machine would shoot a beam into the crystal that would release antimatter in the sample and produce gamma rays. These gamma rays would then be analyzed and studied by the scientists in the control room. The analyzed data would then be further used in the experiments of Black Mesa. Prior to the start of the experiment, the Sector C team also received orders to operate the machinery at 105% power in hopes of gathering the best data possible from the sample. However, this was well above the machinery's safety level of 90%, but as there were orders from the administrator, the team had no choice but to comply.
I think a majority of us just went along like it was nothing. It was a rare sample, so we needed the best data we could gather on it. Though I had heard one of the lead researchers raised his voice about it, but the data we could have gotten was too precious to just give that up. In hindsight, more of us should have realized what was going on and said something about it.
When the experiment began, the scientists and workers of Sector C could not have prepared for what would have occurred.
Shutting down. No, everything's shut down. It's not. It's not shutting down. It's not.
Every object has a set resonance, in which the correct energy and frequency will cause an object to resonate. According to the information saved by the survivors of Black Mesa, if the exotic material extracted from Zen resonated beyond a specific limit, it could cause the destabilization of the fabric of space, and could cause rifts to open up between the worlds. This phenomenon, known as the resonance cascade, occurred within the chamber of the anti-mass spectrometer, and beyond into the inner facilities of Black Mesa. Suddenly, the hostile creatures from Zen were invading and attacking the personnel at the facility. The facility itself also experienced numerous power failures due to the malfunctioning anti-mass spectrometer, and portals tearing into the sensitive parts of the facility.
Yeah, man. And I thought that place was in a sorry state before. But after the experiment, the whole place went to pot. A lot of catwalks and bridges we had gave out or collapsed. Doors started locking up, power cables became exposed and turned pools of water into death traps. The whole thing was grim, to put it mildly. And that was before I even bring up the frickin' aliens that started appearing out of nowhere. People were attacked left and right by these weird green hunched over aliens with blasts of electricity that came from their hands, or mauled by things of all shapes and sizes. You won't believe me about this one, probably. It sounds crazy even to me, but I saw something that moved around like a tick, but it looked like it had skin. I was with 4 others near the Sector B's Area 8 dorms, and one of the guards with us managed to get jumped by one of these things and attach itself to his head, even through his damned helmet. We tried to get it off, but it just ended up killing him. The thing is, that's not the end of it. These things somehow bring the dead back, and I don't know how they do it, but they move around like you'd imagine a zombie would move around, like in a bad B movie.
While Black Mesa employed a security battalion, they were easily overwhelmed and lacked the sufficient firepower to deal with the seemingly endless cascade of strange, unfamiliar creatures. Elevators fell or ceased to function, containers of radioactive waste began spilling out of their proper containers, and the facility quickly became a death trap. Security systems even began to work against the faculty, as doors would refuse to open for people without proper clearance. Most of these doors would even require a retinal scan for verification, which left people in dire straits. Due to the facility's size, they lacked basic safety exits or stairs, meaning most escapees had to resort to barely functioning elevators or risk climbing through air vents and hoping they did not come across a creature from Zen. In an instant, Black Mesa had just turned into a steel tomb for countless scientists, guards, and other personnel.
I just wish there was more I could have done.
All was not lost, however. A contingency plan had been made in case of a catastrophic scenario such as this, in the form of the Hazardous Environment Combat Unit. The HECU was a branch of the United States Marine Corps who were trained to operate in dangerous environments such as the now alien-infested Black Mesa.
Everyone thought that the nightmare was going to be over. I don't think it is unreasonable to assume that the military was there to clean up all the threats and help us escape. Nobody I talked to during that day really thought otherwise.
Roughly an hour after the incident occurred, the HECU arrived from their base in Arizona. Their mission had two major objectives: to reclaim the facility from the invading alien forces, and to silence anybody involved with the experiment and knowledge of alien life.
Yes, our goal that day was to enter the facility with the intent of killing anybody involved with the experiment. I'm not in any position to disobey orders from my superiors, so my feelings over the matter had to be discarded. I also wasn't in any position to ask why that was our goal. It was the mission. My helicopter crashed on the way to the facility, so I never wound up setting foot on Black Mesa. My team and I played radio support for our other battalions. From what we heard, I consider ourselves pretty lucky to have crashed.
The initial wave of HECU soldiers was met with resistance by strange alien spacecrafts and creatures, who attacked the arriving military aircrafts. From then on, the soldiers were fighting a war within the facility against a threat they had only seen depicted in science fiction movies. The initial takeover of the facilities seemed to be going well, with facilities such as the Black Mesa Communication Center being taken over with relative ease. However, as time proceeded, the threat from Zen proved to be stronger than they anticipated.
As time went on into our mission, radio chatter started to sound more and more confusing. Our teams were struggling, requesting additional support, even aerial bombardment. It was clear to me that we were losing this fight. From what it sounded like over the radio, it almost felt like the aliens were strategizing against us.
The military had soon found themselves overwhelmed by the aliens. With no choice left to them, they signaled the order to cut their losses and evacuate, leaving the alien threat in control of Black Mesa.
All our information came from over the radio. From what we heard, evacuation was a mess. Orders came in to rendezvous with other squads and all leave at a specified time, or you will all be left behind. I had no way to know whether everyone had made it successfully by the time the helicopters took to the air. I can only imagine what was going through everyone's minds as they flew back to the base.
With the defeat of the HECU, the government resorted to drastic actions. They deployed a group of trained assassins to clean up where the HECU had failed. However, this group of Black Ops showed no bias for faction.
I had only caught a glimpse of that Black Ops crew. I was sneaking through one of the ventilation shafts when I overheard two military soldiers who got left behind. They were talking to somebody in full black body armor. Without hesitation, this person in black armor instantly shot both of the soldiers. I don't think I crawled faster before in my entire life. I feel like I got lucky just escaping them.
The goal of this Black Ops group was unclear. After all, if the specially trained military couldn't clear out the facility, then what hope did a smaller group have? However, as history would unfold, their goal became obvious.
I was making my way through the vents, and I heard some Black Ops soldiers. I didn't stick around long, but one of them had mentioned something about the package.
I had practically made it topside by the point I started seeing people dressed in all black and geared up with some serious kit. I wasn't taking any chances given what the Jarheads had done to virtually everyone in the facility, so I dove for cover. But as the trucks passed me by, I swore I saw something with a nuclear symbol on the bed of one of the trucks, which is obviously carrying a huge payload of some kind. Needless to say, I didn't want to stick around and find out.
The casualty count at the Black Mesa Research Facility remains unknown. Given the government's disregard for human life and the use of black operations teams, it is unlikely that we will receive a casualty count. This entire catastrophe, the loss of so many lives, was caused in the pursuit of more accurate readings. And it still remains unclear as to why Breen was so insistent on getting the most accurate readings possible. His current whereabouts are unknown. In spite of the overwhelming odds, the incident at Black Mesa also showcased humanity's will to survive. While most were not able to rise to the occasion, the crisis brought out heroes in a few individuals who were able to assist others in this time of crisis.
Miss Green and Miss Cross were present in the experiment and took charge when the catastrophe occurred. Had it not been for them, I don't believe we would have had any hope of escaping.
Well, apart from all the people I met up with and then quickly lost in the dorms, there were two that stood out. The first one was a scientist who took part in the experiment in the anomalous materials test lab that caused this whole mess. Went by Freeman, I'm pretty sure. He and I eventually split off. He headed towards the Lambda Corps for some reason, and I was getting the hell out of Dodge. The other one was one of my work buddies, Barney Calhoun. By sheer dumb luck, I managed to thumb a ride with him in the car that he was driving with a group of other scientists. If it wasn't for the both of them, I'd probably be fly chowing that place right now.
There was a soldier, actually. Didn't attack me on sight like I heard about from the others, and actually seemed like he was there to save us. He went by the name of Shepard, if I'm not mistaken, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for his aid.
The whereabouts of these individuals also remain unknown. These brave individuals either perished helping others escape, or are now living their lives in secrecy. We will also never be sure as to why the government would go to such great lengths to cover up the existence of research on alien life. Do they fear negative public reception over the fact that alien life exists? Or perhaps they're planning something more nefarious involving this border world, which would not be surprising given the events of Black Mesa. The world may never know. What the? Whoa! Okay, the camera's back up, but what the hell is that? What the? Oh, God. Oh my God. I gotta get out of here.